Yep. Welcome back, everyone, to TKO Boxing. This is our fourth video. As always, I'm with Josh and Ben. And today we're going to cover two big fights that happened at the weekend. I suppose big in the names that were there in terms of Lomachenko and Davis. So we're basically going to cover those two fights in one video because it's going to be about the fights themselves and what we expect next. Ben, I'll go to you for the Davis fight. I mean, what did you make of it?
Well, it was a solid performance. He started off slow. In the third, he took a good shot and then he just bounced back. And the best way of putting it is he did what he does best and he just stopped it. Do you know what I mean? Like, what is it? 24 knockouts in 25 fights. He moved up 5 pounds and you could see the difference in size against him and Barrios. And it was just, you have to question it, but he just went up and he did the job and put him down. As simple as that.
And that's the key thing, isn't it? You would have expected the win. Obviously, he wasn't fighting at his usual weight, was he either? So, I guess it's one of them where both of these fights really, they're as much about, what do we expect them to do next? These are almost like their kind of warm-up fights onto something bigger. So, obviously you said Davis got the win, but what do you expect from him next? What weight do you expect and who do you expect him to fight?
So for me, I don't think he should stick at that weight. I do think he should move back down. But while you're there and while he's got the WBA regular, he should just go for Josh Taylor. Josh Taylor's undisputed. While you're there, even if he lost to it, that's not a bad loss on your record. But if he beats him, he's undisputed. And I just think while you're there, go for it.
And you think that one would sell tickets, wouldn't it? At the end of the day, it'd be a big blockbuster clash, and you feel that would sell quite well.
I think when all the belts in any division are on the line, it's got to sell well.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's a huge fight. Obviously, you've got the Mayweather promotions back in Tank. And obviously, that's a huge fight. I think, if I'm honest, you'd argue, other than obviously, I know Josh Taylor's got the belts, but to the casual fan, Davis is a much bigger name, isn't he? He's had the promotion, he's got the backing of Floyd Mayweather. Whereas Josh Taylor, to be fair, I think you'd have to say, I'm a big fan of his. But he's the victim of poor promotion, really. I mean, other than hardcore boxing fans, if you went and just asked a random man on the street, he probably won't know who Josh Taylor is. That'd be a really interesting fight to see get made, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, who do you think Josh would win that?
I do think Josh Taylor would win. I think he's just far too good a boxer. It's not necessarily his power, but the angles that he gets and his precision with his punches. It's sort of on the button every time. I do think he would win it, but again, it's still one you'd like to see. And there's far too much emphasis put on a boxer remaining undefeated, and obviously there's a bit more with obviously Davis being part of Mayweather. Because in fairness, in latter years, although it was still for world titles, Mayweather's fights were really more about could somebody beat him, wasn't it? So I do think Taylor would win, but I still think there's then plenty for Tank to go back to lightweight and do, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think, as you say, with Taylor, it'd be a big way for him actually to get himself more known against the bigger name, and you probably would say that he would win that fight. I'd have to agree with you on that. I mean, obviously, we saw another big name in boxing, Lomachenko fight at the weekend. Josh, what did you make of that fight? I mean, it was an expected win, weren't it?
It was an expected win, but I don't think Nakatani got the praise in the build-up that he probably deserves. There's much easier fights that Lomachenko could have taken in the warm-up. Obviously, he's made no secret he wants Teofimo Lopez rematch next. And I think Nakatani was chosen because he took Lopez the distance. So obviously it's go in there, do a better job, make the statement. And then, as we saw after the fight, Bob Arum, who's obviously Lomachenko's promoter, was seen and on camera sort of verbally agreed with Teofimo Lopez's dad. If Lopez comes through Cambosis, that would be the fight that would look to make next. As for the fight itself, I thought this is the thing, as Ben's just rightly pointed out about Tank, he's not a natural 140-pound fighter. Lomachenko is a natural lightweight. You'd have to say he's probably more suited to super featherweight, but in fairness, he's that skilled that he just cleaned up in those divisions, to be fair to him. But at lightweight, you could see again, as Ben just said, it's a similar sort of story. the size difference was visible. And I think the first sort of couple of rounds, you could see that. And Lomachenko was just sort of gauging how to work his way on the inside. And as soon as he cracked that, it was a brilliant performance from Lomachenko. It really was. I mean, for 2 or 3 rounds before he eventually got pulled out, there was a case for throwing the towel in or the ref even stopping it. It really was. It was Lomachenko back to his best. Brilliant.
Yeah, definitely. And as you touched on there, it will potentially be the Lopez fight next. Ben, do you think that's going to be like, is that going to be a big ticket promotion? Is that going to get the fans excited?
I think it's got to. I think it's because if you count Davis, at lightweight now, there's 5 big names and only 2 of them have fought each other, obviously Lopez and Lomachenko. And you just want to see it again. It was a slow fight, the first one, but I think after the Lomachenko fight of the weekend, he seems hungrier this time. He seems like he's going to want it. I don't think he'll come out slow like people are used to Lomachenko taking time to work his opponent out. But he's already had that fight with Lopez, and I think first round he'll come straight out. I think you'll see a best Lomachenko. I think the only way Lomachenko loses is if Lopez just uses that reach and the size to his advantage. Like Josh said, with Lomachenko not being natural that weight, I think that's Lopez's best chance. I think we're in for a better fight than the first.
Yeah, Josh, would you second that? Would you reckon Lomachenko would get the win, or is it going to be very 50-50?
I think it's 50-50. Of course it is. Lopez is young, fresh, and he's naturally the bigger man, and he executed the perfect game plan in the first fight. I can fully understand what Ben said, and I'm not just disagreeing for the sake of this video.
Like always.
Yeah, no, I know, but I do think Lopez would just shade it. But having said that, it's one of those, I wouldn't be surprised either way. It really is the 50-50. But if you said to me now, put your money on it, I would back Lopez to win it. And then as Ben said, the lightweight division's on fire at the minute. You've got Devin Haney, Ryan Garcia, the list goes on. Luke Campbell, we don't know what he's going to do yet. He's proven he can operate at that world level. Javier Fortuna. There's such big fights for everybody. My only worry is that, as fighters get bigger, we saw it with Amir Khan. He started off at lightweight. As you grow into a man, obviously size comes on. You end up weighing more. You can't make these weights. And I just hope, with Devin Haney, Ryan Garcia, Davis, they're in their early 20s. I hope we don't miss the boat with it, if that makes sense. And they get to the point where there has been rumours of Davis has very well documented struggle to make weight at various times of his career. And there has been talk of Devin Haney also struggling to make the lightweight limit. So that's my only worry with it. But what a division that is at the moment.
And I think you both touched on something well here, which, we've said the exact same for the heavyweight division, but like these big fights just aren't happening in boxing. And we are going to do a video coming up about the state of the heavyweight division, but that's certainly not the only, weight category it could be applied to. We're not getting to see these big fights that we all want as boxing fans. And I feel that something needs to be addressed about that. It really does in the future for us to for the future of boxing, because otherwise these YouTube promotions and other stuff are just going to get more popular because people are going to be more attracted to those. And, watching these smaller fights where you almost know who's going to win before they even step in the ring. And that's no disrespect to the boxers themselves that are stepping in against these bigger names, but there's too many of these cushy fights for me in boxing. I mean, I don't know if you lads both agree with that.
No, 100. Oh, go on then.
No, I do agree 100% what you're saying, but like to mix up that point and what Josh was saying earlier about the undefeated, I think the lightweight is one of the most excited ones with the names, and I think because they're all undefeated, they're quick to call each other out, but none of them taking the leap yet. And I do think undefeated is one of the reasons that is happening, because it's been built up so much, like they don't want to lose undefeated, and I think that's why they do avoid each other. And No,
I know what you're saying. I think there is. The only one I'd defend sort of on the lightweight topic that we're currently talking about is Devin Haney. In fairness to him, Lomachenko was the WBC pound for pound towards the top of anyone's list. He pursued the WBC route to be his mandatory. And then, the WBC did their typical thing of granting him franchise status, so he didn't have to have mandatories. So then Haney got promoted from interim to just world champion. But by his own admission, and obviously Eddie Hearn's his promoter, and he said the same, that's not what we wanted. We wanted the Lomachenko fight. And So I would defend him on it, but I think, it's absolutely right, Scott, what you've just said. At some point, egos have to be put aside. Who cares about you undefeated? Look, Muhammad Ali, the greatest to ever do it, he's lost fights. I know people will say, oh, he came back and shouldn't have, but he still lost fights in his, in his prime. Everyone needs to just get over it. And I think as a fan, even if you're a massive Ryan Garcia fan, you would rather watch him in the best fights, but he might take a loss, than fight a load of people who, like you said, smaller fights. We're not that fussed about. It's quite clear he's probably going to win it beforehand. And as soon as less ego, less TV rights, because I get so fed up. I don't know about you guys of hearing that. Oh, well, it's a broadcasting issue because someone's with DAZN, someone's with PBC on Fox. No, just make the fights.
Yeah.
Promoters are as guilty as anyone else, aren't they? Because they enter into these deals with different companies, and at some point, especially with the rise of the YouTube boxing, if the fights don't get made, you're going to lose the casual fans. The UFC is getting more and more popular sort of with every show. That's about to have another spike with Conor McGregor coming back. So it really is. It's a critical time for boxing, and these fights need making.
I think you're completely right there with the UFC comment there, Josh. Obviously, that's just going from strength to strength, and there's not that same stigma around someone losing there. Those fans seem a lot more acceptant of it. I think you've also both made good points about the promoters. The promoters don't help, and people wanting their split and the arguments with the split, the promoters wanting as much money as they can. They definitely prevent these fights from happening, especially with those when you've got the television network issues as well. But we're going to do a full video covering that, especially on the heavyweight division. Definitely. So we'll leave that there for today anyway. So yeah, guys, as always, please hit that like button because it does help us out massively. Also hit that subscribe button if you are new here, because we're going to be bringing out a lot more content, a lot more for previews of fights coming up. We're also going to keep reacting to fights, the big fights coming in, and also other bits we've got planned as well. So please hit that subscribe button, and hopefully we'll see you on the next one.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.